This episode of Art Block is brought to you by the supporters of my Patreon. If you'd like to support the show, you can find the link to my page in the description below. Hello, and welcome to Art Block, the show where we talk about art and how it's... You know what? Cut the lights, cut the green screen. We're taking a break. I'm going to bed. There's snacks in the fridge. Tea feeds soul for me tonight.
Many months later.
Spirit, it's been months. We need to get back to making videos. I don't want to. I spent like 12 hours editing the season finale. I also had 3 consecutive trips and had to move halfway across the country again. Not to mention, you decided to open commissions and tried to start online courses while also not going outside to socialize with anyone outside the online world. Exactly my point there. Look, if you're going to moan about it, the least you can do is try to get something done. You mentioned doing a revamp for Season 2. Have you finished the new assets? Yeah, in the folder on the computer. Well, you have the script talking about motivation. Let's use that. Might even help you get your mojo back. Fine. And T? I swear if we ever do one of these intro skits again, I'm making someone else do the editing. Hello and welcome to Art Block, the show where we talk about art and how it's made. I'm your host Spirit, and today we'll be talking about motivation, primarily how to find it and how to keep it when working on art. So, motivation. How do you find it and how do you keep it? Well, to understand how we get motivated, we need to understand where motivation comes from and some of the differing types of motivation. For those who somehow never heard the term, motivation is a drive or desire to do something or get something done. After doing some research on the topic, I found that there are 4 main types of motivation: intrinsic, extrinsic, addiction, and subconscious. For now, we'll be focusing on the first 2 as they're the most relevant to the current topic at hand. Let's start with intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is essentially an internal desire to do something, and when we complete said thing, we get a rewarding feeling. Intrinsic motivation can be easily tied into your interests, whether it be art, horseback riding, fixing cars, or anything else you find enjoyable. Once you find something you enjoy, your brain will reward you every time you complete something related to that task. On the other side of the coin, we have extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is a type of motivation driven by external factors. Say you have a paper that's due soon for a class, or you have to go to work in order to pay bills. Though you may not really want to do these things, external factors require you to do them, and thus you get extrinsic motivation. Now you all might be wondering how this ties into art, given that this is the show where we talk about art after all. Well, this all comes down to the varying degrees of how much you are invested into art. To use an example, I've had talks with some of my friends who have varying levels of artistic experience, and each of us draw at different levels of frequency. Overall, the ones that did artwork as a form of job or had a need to fill were the ones who were most frequently practicing, and had developed a stronger intrinsic drive to draw more often. Those who did it more as a hobby drew less frequently, and thus didn't have as strong of a drive to do it or didn't carry as many rewards by comparison. From my observation, those who do artwork as a form of job and have done it for longer tend to develop a higher intrinsic drive to create artwork. This drive also increases based off of the frequency and duration of drawing, and can spike if the person experiences a large amount of growth in their artistic skills over a shorter period of time. Their drive to create is not only influenced on a time of interest, but also the extrinsic factors of art being a job, or at least something that plays a major role in their life. From my personal experiences, it can sometimes be difficult for me to find the proper motivation to get started on paid work. However, once you get into the groove of it and realize why you're working on it, both intrinsic and extrinsic motivations start working in your favor. However, what if you're more of a hobbyist and don't have as many reasons to draw? Why should you draw? At this point, it's important to ask why art is important to you. What drove you to start making art in the first place? Maybe there's another artist who inspired you to try and create your own. Maybe you saw a particular TV show or played a game that made you want to create your own characters. It's important to understand that both professionals and hobbyists alike have a common enjoyment of creativity, and regardless of whether you're doing it for a job or simply as a hobby, many of us have common ground when it comes to creativity. It's an unfortunate side effect that, due to the instantaneous and fleeting nature of society, it is difficult to have to wait for results. One of my biggest motivating factors when it comes to making art is seeing how people react to it, which is why I personally prefer comments over favorites when it comes to artwork. I've been incredibly lucky to have developed a following over the years who not only like my artwork, but share a similar love for art as I do. However, those who may not have been as lucky or simply aren't getting the same recognition for their work may end up losing motivation due to the fact that no one seems to care. No one's paying attention to what I spent hours working on, so what's even the point of making it in the first place? This is a dangerous mindset, and unfortunately one that I think a lot of content creators nowadays carry, even if they already know about it. Something you should consider regardless of how much recognition your work is getting is finding a reason outside of the numbers. I've already mentioned how fame shouldn't be the sole reason for why you create, and especially in this day and age, I can't emphasize this enough. To use an example, this series and many of my side projects carry a balance of intrinsic and extrinsic factors to keep me motivated. Narrative-based projects such as Echo, Beta 9, 2000 Degrees, and Spirit Unbound are all projects I work on, not for the potential of monetary or social gain, but rather because I want to see the story come to life and share it with other people. Though I'm often pressuring myself to get a new video out every other week, I found that my subscriber and view count has begun to matter less and less. I found far more enjoyment in both the creative process and seeing how the series has positively affected myself and others who happen across it. When you're struggling to find motivation, it's important to dig to your roots and ask yourself why you might have started something in the first place. Now, that's not to say your motivation for something can't change over time, but understanding what drives you to create can ultimately lead to far greater leaps and bounds than simply trying to stay where you are. Next, consider your current environment. Ask how long you've been working on a project. Creative block and burnout can be major contributors to loss of motivation. Working in a difficult or uncomfortable environment can make it hard for you to focus on your work. Maybe you need a quiet room, or maybe it's too hot where you are. Finding what works best for you can help you keep motivated, and as long as you're not overexerting yourself, you'll be able to work more efficiently and for longer periods of time. Personally, I've found that working in a quiet environment with some music helps me focus better. Thus, I generally prefer to work later at night as it's easier to avoid distraction. Being in good physical health while you work is also essential to keeping your morale up, especially when working on difficult projects. Unfortunately, with the nature of deadlines, working while you're sick can sometimes turn into a must, especially if creativity is related to your job. However, just like a normal employee, taking a day of rest to help you get back to your proper working function can massively increase your motivation. Finally, a major factor to staying motivated is having the will to stick with it to the end. Granted, not every project will work out, and sometimes it is necessary to take a break or even drop a project entirely because there's simply too many factors against it. Real life often gets in the way, and those who've been following me for a while probably know that highly taxing things like moving and traveling will tend to drain me of my energy. However, one of the things that re-energizes me is creating. Whether it be working on one of my books or drawing a piece of personal art, art is as much a job as it is a hobby, and has become somewhat akin to therapy for me. Often, professional artists will feel guilty or pressured to work on stuff for our clients all the time. After all, we've been paid to do this, and someone is expecting us to produce a quality product for them. Why should I be allowed to create personal art for myself when there's other projects that obviously take priority? Granted, I wouldn't encourage anyone to procrastinate too much on other projects, however it should be understood that artists are as much people as everyone else. We get stressed about our jobs, and for a lot of us, we need time to simply work on a personal piece of art that doesn't need to be used for some greater purpose. In order to stay motivated, we have to continue moving forward and trying new things. Art and creativity is a process of growth and finding what you enjoy, and often your motivation will come from drawing what you like, as well as pushing yourself to improve on what you need. Find a reason besides fame or money to create. Maybe you want to see something made, or you want to make gifts for your friends. In my experience as an artist, nothing motivates me more than to see how far I've come since I've started. A lot of people will see where they are now and wonder why they aren't improving. This can be a major motivation killer, especially for new artists. The most important thing when it comes to keeping motivated is understanding that sometimes you need to push forward and just keep trying. You'll get where you want to be eventually, but only if you reach for it. And that's about it for today's episode. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. It supports me and is practically free. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter and DeviantArt where I post artwork and updates about the show. Want to support the show? I have a Patreon which I've linked in the description below. Gold ranking patrons and up get special access to a rank in my Discord server as well as a private chat room. Thank you all so much for watching, I'm Spirit, and I'll see you next time.